Hey everybody, NovelistCrim here, and welcome to Writing Company and Motivation. This is an accountability stream which we host Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. And essentially, what we do is we work on our dreams. We work together. We also do some writing discussion. And we're going to dive into this discussion immediately. No worries, Justin. It's good to see you, buddy. So I wanted to try out a new format to see if we can, kind of cut down a little bit on the entry time. I know that there's some people who watch this on VOD, and they'd probably just like to shoot to the good stuff. So this is for you. Essentially, let's go ahead and dive right into discussion. Today's topic is a little bit about process and kind of just remaining flexible and trying not to be stagnant when it comes to, I guess creativity, right? So one thing that I constantly like to do, I like to challenge and ask questions as to is there a better way to do this? And I always assume that there always is. There's always a better way to tackle whatever problem that you're having. In fact, I'm pretty sure that there's techniques even in walking, something as simple, so it depends on how deep you want to get into that efficiency. In my terms, I'm trying to reduce the amount of time it takes to turn over a chapter. I noticed that in the most recent statistics, it takes about probably maybe 2, 3, or 4 weeks to get a chapter done. And that's it takes no time to draft it, but then I noticed that I've been kind of going back and forth a lot with coming up with the content. Now I don't know if that's because psychologically I'm afraid of the second act and it's tough. I think that it could also be that the scenes were super important and I really wanted to hit those notes properly, and then having that high expectation kind of scared you. Don't know. But definitely trying to figure out ways to make the process a little bit better and easier for you is something that I try to strive for, and see if there's any possibility to improve as a person and as a writer. So recently, let's see here, and we also wanted to apply that to stream as well, by the way. Part of the reason why we don't usually, when we started these streams, we kind of started off with a writing discussion, a journal entry rather, where I kind of just do an introduction, then we go right into the typing portion of the journal entry, and I do that live in front of you guys. In order to kind of keep viewer interest, I figured, you know what? Why don't I just do the writing ahead of time and then just engage with you right off the bat? So I think it's going to be pretty cool to experiment and see how that takes to people, see if it reaches others. So let's see here. Before we get into tonight's discussion, just a quick update about the novel. Watermelon, that's awesome. Quick update about the novel. So essentially, currently on chapter 11, and this marks the first week of work with this project. Now, I was hoping to kind of get this chapter done, which I'm pretty close to doing it. The only problem is that I had Dungeons and Dragons last Saturday, and also Father's Day time spending on Sunday, so my time was a little bit screwed, and it was the perfect storm to throw a wrench in the system. I'm hoping that I can finish up something today, because then I'll have something to submit to the beta readers, which will be kind of worth it. But I think when you're trying to set yourself up for this sort of victory, and you're pushing yourself towards hitting these goals, I would say try not to get too hung up on the things that you can't really avoid, Father's Day or spending time with family. Sometimes it's unavoidable, so it's just don't beat yourself up for it. There's always ways to make up for time and try to see if you can build up efficiency in another way. But the whole point of doing writing, and the whole point of accomplishing anything really, is just showing up and being consistent. So missing a day is not that bad. So one of the things I kind of wrote down in the journal entry today was considering like my writing process and trying to find a way to like describe to the new writer like a way of thinking. I think that if you're a beginner writer and you're going into rough drafting, definitely focus more on like, I guess it's like more of like an emotional side, right? Like when you're diving into your work, it should be more like a you can kind of like picture yourself on the beach. You have like a metal detector and you're kind of like sweeping along the sands, right? And you're just kind of like looking for any types of treasure that you can find as you move along. Some of the, you know, metal that you find could be trash, and some of it could be, you know, great. But your job isn't to like, you know, find something and then stop and then take like, you know, an hour to look at it and, you know, figure out what you could do with it. Instead, no, you just, when you collect something, you throw it into the bag and keep moving. Eventually, that would kind of like basically represent like the first draft. It's an emotional, I'm looking for things that are like, wow, like right in the beginning, or things that you know, you think is cool and you want to try it out just to see if it works, and then it doesn't work, and that's okay. Having that type of emotion is such an amazing tool. Like a lot of people are afraid of negative emotions. A lot of people are afraid of, you know, when their work feels boring and where their work like, you know, they get a bad feeling about it or they feel stuck. Usually that's a symbol or like I guess it's like a red flag that's letting you know that, hey, there's something about this that is really rough to write. And sometimes it's because it doesn't belong in the story. And that's okay. Like, you know, being comfortable with like saying, aha, so this is like my own like a bad writing gauge that can kind of like let you know ahead of time before you like, you know, publish it, or, you know, spend hours and hours trying to like, you know, fix it. It's kind of a nice thing to have. So, you know, don't fear it. Don't feel bad about having such a thing. Like the negative feelings are definitely a huge tool for the writer's tool belt. So, I guess if we go back to the analogy of like, you know, sweeping the beach and looking for material and stuff like it, you know, that would be like the first draft. Then when you have all your stuff, you kind of like go into second draft mode, which is basically you open up the bag and then you look at like what could be possible. You know, what is immediately trash that needs to get cut? What is the things that I could, you know, that I really, really like, you know, the treasure that's going to be like big. Those things are like, you know, some of your focal points, like things that you must like focus on and try to like build toward those moments. Like anything that's exciting in your book, you want to make sure that it has the most amount of impact possible. So being able to like have the proper lead up to those moments that you find really, really cool is kind of key. So you'll be able to kind of like assemble like these ideas that you gather through the first draft, and then be able to like kind of put them in chronological order, something that feels right, makes sense, and now you have things to go toward. Because when you're going through the second draft, it's more about trying to figure out how the story, or at least rather making the story work. So like rough draft is kind of like idea mining and just testing out random things and being silly and having fun. Second draft is like, okay, well, let's tell a story with the stuff that we just came up with. And the third draft would be more like, all right, cool. So is there anything that I'm missing? Like, is there any details that I'm lacking? Is there any like plot holes or things that are, you know, that need to be like addressed? Is there, I guess like, yeah, details, like, you know, you want to make sure that this doesn't have like, you know, blank characters. I guess it's consistency for characters as well. That's one of the challenges that I'm facing right now, actually, consistency. So like, I'll give you an example. One of my characters at the start of the novel, she's very against Kaylin joining up with this criminal, right? And, you know, she makes her stance on that known, and she's extremely aggressive about it. If I were to, right now, have Kaylin like reveal that he's like working for this person, and then have her just immediately be okay with it, that's like a continuity error. And like, you know, people would kind of be like, that doesn't make any sense, or, you know, that doesn't fit with the personality. So trying to like, you want to like show the proper lead up to like, you know, events in a character's life. And if the character is dynamic and they change, you want to also show that there's like a proper amount of like change within that, what's called, I guess within those scenes, in order to justify that would be possible. So I think it's just like a kind of like a careful balance. So anywho, sorry, I'm going on a ramble here. So like, in terms of like process, I've been trying to figure out how I could best get to that 1 chapter a week type of vibe. So I'm thinking that my process right now, I've been kind of like amending it as I go, and you know, it hasn't 100% worked yet, but we're gonna go ahead and try it and give it a couple shots and see, like, you know, what happens. But essentially, I'm thinking that like rough drafting is something I want to do for like maybe like 2,000 words per day for about 3 days, which is about like, you know, 6,000 words of content. Also, how's it going, both Don and Crow? Sorry. It's good to see you guys. Watermelon good. Yes. So I'm thinking about 2,000 words per day for 3 days. I feel like that will probably get me about 6,000 words, roughly. And 6,000 words is not exactly what I'm going to be, you know, aiming at for a chapter. My chapters usually range around anywhere between 1,500 to like 2,000 something, typically. So basically you have 6,000 words of, I just tried out something and it might be good, might not be, but we're gonna find out. Just idea making. Then you kind of scrape those down, and you know, in the second phase, I spend a day basically saying, okay, so after the 3 days, this day I'm gonna say, what do I like about this chapter? What didn't I like about this chapter? So the things that I like, I must focus on, and then, like, you know, build up an impact to make those that moment even more awesome. The things that were kind of boring and meh, like, we can just, you know, toss that out. If things didn't really make sense to getting the story to move forward, you just toss that out too, you know. Everything has to kind of like point to the climax and you know, also lead into the next chapter. So a lot of things to consider in order to make the chapter function properly. After I kind of like take a reflection of what I would like to do, I like to, or at least I've been doing, I've been gathering the scenes that I like, and then like kind of writing out the scenes and sequels that are a part of that story, or at least a part of the chapter, and then kind of just like, you know, creating a kind of like a plan as to what, like, how I'm going to execute on this chapter. Like, okay, so what elements do I need in order to make this chapter successful? Is there conflict? Is there a goal? Is there a setback of some sort? Like, how is the story progressing forward? Is there proper time to experience emotions? Like, is like kind of like an emotional check-in. If things happen, you know, you want to make sure that the character has a moment to like kind of respond, and you can show where they're coming from and what their thought process is, and what they anticipate is going to happen, and what they choose to do next. So like, these are the things that kind of set up like a little plan for like how the chapter is going to go beat by beat. My rule when for the next portion is that I want to do like 2 to 3 days of what I call good writing, or at least good narrative. Now, writing good narrative takes a lot longer in my own experience. Like, you know, you can kind of just like write out Garbo no problem, like, you know, really fast. But writing good narrative takes a little while longer. I can probably do like maybe like 500 to 1,000 words per day on a good day. So I kind of just try to like break it up as best I can. I try to spend 2 or 3 days working on, I guess, like a good narrative version of it. As a rule, whenever I end the day, I try not to, like, whenever I end the day with like writing, the next day I do not edit anything prior. Like, I leave it alone. Even if I have like a new idea, like, you know, it's fine to have a new idea, but, you know, basically pretend that it changed and then just move forward, you know? Because it could be that you have like a new idea and then you're like, oh, well, I want to edit everything behind this. And then you edit everything behind that, and then by the time you actually try your plan, all of a sudden you don't like the plan. And then like now you have to edit all of it over again, and you're just like going through this like cycle of like back forth. It's just easier to like, you know, one chunk at a time. Like, this is what inspired me on this day and I felt good about it. This is what inspired me on this day and I felt good about it, or not, who cares? And then you keep going, and once you have like a, you know, you figure out like, okay, so now this is better writing, how do I feel about it? And then you do it again. You kind of like organize or cut the things that need to like be cut, or work on some of the stuff that needs to be like fixed. By that time, I think like there should only be like about a couple of like minor tweaks toward the end of the week. It's like an 8-day process, but like toward the end of the week, you should have something that like kind of resembles like a I guess a decent second, maybe third draft worthy material. So that's basically what I'm trying to do. That's the process that I'm trying to like employ right now. So I'll let you know how successful that is in the coming weeks. But yeah. So let's see here. Do you see your chapters as short stories or elements of a larger story? I've heard each chapter should have a beginning, a middle, and end, and just like the entire book. I think that each chapter... How do I describe this? Here's how I view it. In my mind, there are 4 chunks to a book, right? 4 chunks. And each of those chunks consists of one big question, right? There's an overarching question, but then there's like, 4 chunks, and that's like, each quarter of your book. There's a question that you're trying to answer in each chunk. So for me, a chapter is essentially not only pointing at the climax, but what it's trying to do is express the answer to like how you led up to the big answer, right? It's like showing the math in a long equation, right? So basically you're like, well, if you were working backwards, let's say for example you look like a Lord of the Rings, like does Frodo, the overarching question is, does Frodo throw the ring into the Mount Doom? The answer is yes, but then as you start like looking backwards, it's like, okay, well, how do you answer that question? It's like, okay, well, this happened because of this, and this happened because of this, and then you start going backwards like a little domino to saying, oh, okay, so that's how it all, hit forward and propelled everything forward. So it's like, I guess I look at it more like dominoes, really. Dominoes that would eventually kind of like answer a question toward the end. So it's a chapter's got to be an important element to the story. It's got to be telling the reader something, or pushing the story forward in some way in order to answer those questions. Is what I'm saying. In the case of like my own novel, the first quarter of the book is asking the question, will Kalen join this criminal, right, and become a member of his organization? The answer, like there's an answer to that question, and then you look back, and then these are all the inevitable steps that require that character to make that decision by this time, so that when you come toward the end of that question, you as a reader can agree that that was the right decision, or the unavoidable decision, is what I'm saying. So I hope that helps a little bit. So hey, Moreland, it's good to see you, buddy. So let's go ahead and answer some of your questions. Gonna go check out the Discord here. All right, I got a couple questions here. Second. So it says here, have you ever tried writing exercises that take you out of your comfort zone? If so, what was it and what was the result? I've tried 2 that of note. And the first one, I remember I was hanging out with another writer at one point, and they were trying to like get me to like do some short story writing, because they had a belief that I wasn't able to complete, that my problem for why novels take so long is that because I can't complete a novel, and that wasn't the case. He suggested that I do a short story or like a flash fiction to kind of prove that I could do it, right? Just a simple, flash fiction that only requires like 500 words, and just write a story based on that. And I was like, you know what, I tell you what, I'll bang this out in like 30 minutes. So I did. I banged out the story, and it was a very dark and humorous piece that vaguely resembles the Pied Piper. And I thought it was pretty good. It was funny, and I think one of the cool things about that story is that you know, you're able to just kind of show that you do have the creativity to like really whip out anything if you're, you know, trying to think on the fly. So it felt kind of good to kind of do that experiment. Is it something I'd publish? Not really. No. Before I answer the second part of the question, let me see here. Don't forget, you have smaller questions you can answer along the way. Yeah. Answering small questions helps the reader believe you'll be able to answer the overarching question. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Totally agree. So like, yeah, it's just a series of like answering questions. A lot of the questions that like, you know, that's basically what a story is. It's like basically a series of questions that, you know, hook the reader, and then the answers to those questions throughout. So, yeah. Let's see here. So the second thing that I did, what if? Hey, safe perhaps to drugs. I love that name. Welcome back, dude. That's an unforgettable name, dude. So let's so the second portion of like something that I tried out of my comfort zone was one of the things that I wanted to do. I was really frustrated with story, and I was trying to figure out like how can I get storytelling to work at the time. And I think at the time I was like looking up, you know, how like Save the Cat in order to understand storytelling. I was trying to figure out like what to do, and I didn't know what story I wanted to really write with the ideas that I had. So I was like, okay, let me back up, and I really like this character that I wrote, so let me write an origin story for him, like a, you know, like a backstory history. I just wanted to write it in like a short story format, just to try. And I think the results of those things were huge because doing that experiment, I kind of fell in love with the character, and it has become the younger version of that character has become the novel that I'm working on currently. So like, I think sometimes experimenting can also lead to like really wonderful things. They can like show you a new perspective that you haven't seen. Something you know, shows you a new idea that you perhaps might like even better. So yeah. That's a good name. I love it. All right, so let's move to the next bit. So here's the second question. What aspects of writing have you found the hardest over the years? Dialogue, character, narrator voice, descriptions, world building, or following that, what is one aspect of you're constantly trying to get better at? And how are you implementing it in your story currently? Okay, so let's take the first half of that, which basically says, what is the hardest thing I found over the years for writing? I think that the most difficult, I mean, it almost seems like every year that passes by as a writer, you learn something new. And it almost, in my experience, every year had almost like a theme to it. It was really weird. But of all of those, I'd say the understanding storytelling was perhaps the most difficult to get. Like, you know, and this is probably because like I kind of like went in blindly, you know, like after the first act, I was really great at writing first acts because, you know, it just makes sense. It's like you have a character with an interesting hook, and then basically you roll into a circumstance that pushes him into a situation that he can't avoid, and he becomes a part of this thing. And now, what's in the middle? You know, like understanding that, like, you know, the story requires little portions of like, you know, little points of interest along the way. Like, you know, you have the point of interest in the beginning that hooks the reader. You have the point of interest that kind of pushes the character toward the point of no return, where they're now a part of this adventure. You have a point of interest in the direct middle that kind of like, you know, changes the game in some way or another. But it's also the thing that, you know, it also has something to do with like the character's goals and what they're trying to accomplish. So now you have like another question and a goal to answer up to the middle, and then you have another switch to another question. So like those pieces I was definitely missing throughout the earlier portions of my writing, and that kind of like created a lot of mayhem, because I just kind of wrote like whatever was happening, and it became almost like a slice of life. Like I was just like writing whatever the hell would happen next, but there wasn't a lot of power to it. And that's another aspect of storytelling as well. It was I think learning the Jim Butcher method of like Jim Butcher and Deborah Chester method of kind of like doing storytelling, where you have like almost like a writer engine going through, where you have scenes and sequels pushing the story. That was huge, because like it showed me that oh, okay, so this is why my scenes are boring and they feel like they're going nowhere. It's because there's no conflict, there's no goal, and making sure that you inject a goal and a conflict in each of those scenes, and you show up. You also have the necessary emotional check-in for each of those moments. Was kind of huge. I think that was like the biggest game changer for me as like a writer. It was the most difficult to understand as well. Like you know, now that you kind of like have the perspective though, it's like it's a no wonder this is a problem, right? Like now that you kind of like look back at it. Hold on one second. Let me catch up here. Let's see here. Also, if your character slides into something more interesting, if your side character is more interesting than your main character, you should stop and ask yourself, why aren't they the main character? Yeah. For me, it's like I like the characters that are the most interesting, obviously. For me, I usually choose the character that has the most to lose. You know, the one that has the most stacked against them, and like it's very difficult to like survive in that world. Like you know, Kalen as a character is not very powerful. He's not like a sorcerer. He doesn't have anything like really helpful. In a world full of magic, it's a real problem, right? But that's almost interesting, because it's like, well, how the hell is he gonna like, you know, win? You know, he has so much against him that it you know, makes him the most interesting character to like fight back. Especially since he's the sort to take things into his own initiative. Let's see here. Can I ask something in Discord that's related to writing as a lifestyle rather than the act itself? Yeah, sure, of course. Go for it. We have like a whole broad, you know, the question and answer thing is like kind of broad. You can ask anything really. I think one of the questions was if I could, if they could have a CT scan of my brain or something like that. I was on Ella Justin. That was funny. So this is an example of the wildness of that. All right, so I'd say like dialogue has always been natural. Characters are pretty decent. Like they definitely needed work, and as I matured as an adult, I kind of realized that people work a lot differently than I thought that they did when I was young, you know, as hell. So I guess that comes naturally. Narrator voice, yeah. I guess growing up, I had a really shitty prose, and it wasn't until I went to the writers group that like you know, I learned how to do it a little bit better. I had a lot of issues with like head jumping. I was trying to be like I was trying to write in third person omniscient, because that's kind of like the way I saw old timey you know, novels conducted, and it was not for me. But I found my writing style, and I'm still working on it, because there's still a lot of things that I need to remove from my own writing. Like, you know, say for example, one of the things I struggled with was like redundancy. Sometimes it's like, you know, really good to like say two things because it just makes the sentence sound prettier. But in reality, I just said the same type of descriptor twice in two different words. So it's like, what's, you know, like that type of redundancy is not necessary. like what else? Sometimes like one of the most recent lessons that I learned from a writers group was like when I think it was something like, if you're saying the word because, you should probably just do it in an action rather than just saying because through narrative, you know? So like you can easily show that in action. Like say for example, like, you know, if you were having a scene where this you know, Kaylin's sister, for example, was like, you know, being really she was being like really pouty and not wanting to talk to Kaylin during breakfast the next morning. And the reason why is because she's pissed, right? So like I said, you know, when I was typing the narrative at the time, it was I said something to the effect of like, you know, she was being like quiet and you know, avoidant, like, you know, only answering in single, you know, sentences or single sounds, essentially because, you know, she was still upset at Kaylin. So like the writers group basically said, well, I mean, you can basically gather that information by like, you know, piecing it together with what's around, with the context. You don't need to write because. So just remove that and then just go right into the action of like, you know, you show that she's responding in this way. And you know, the reader is smarter than you think, so they can like you know, piece it together themselves. Let's see here. So descriptions are always a pain in the butt. Like I struggle with descriptions because I don't want to like, you know, bog down the story with too much description. I used to do a lot of it when I was younger, and then like I kind of got into more and more vague, and I think I've gotten vague to the point of like almost a detriment, like borderline. So I really need to like be careful with that. So I think that's something that I'm gonna probably have to work on maybe in the third draft. World building. I was really great with world building when I was younger. I really had like the world builder's disease, and I was like obsessed with like World of Warcraft. So like I really wanted to like build everything. But as I got older, I kind of realized that like world building for me was a little bit futile, and the reason why is because 9 times out of 10 you can create like all these like crazy worlds, and that's great for you if you love to do that, but like you're not really going to show the reader much of any of it. I noticed it's like you only see such a small tip of the iceberg of like what your story is. So I think like having an idea in mind as to like, you know, how the story and the systems, like be it magic or political, generally functions is good. You know, barring that, I wouldn't really like, I mean personally, I don't spend too much time detail on like, you know, doing huge amounts of world building unless I know for, you know, without a shadow of a doubt that I'm going to be coming back to this place and it's going to be important, and you know, we need to build on it. And also, I think like in a way that lazy approach kind of like helps out a little bit because it provides a sense of like mystery to the story. Because like there's always room to kind of like describe a little bit more in the future. There's other people who are going to pick up the book and then basically have their own theory craft as to like what's going on with the story. And because you can shut your mouth and you didn't say anything, you can kind of just like piggyback off of like whatever they suggest, you know? So it's just like, oh yeah, that's a brilliant theory. And also a good idea. So there's some benefits to like, you know, doing either or. I think like having like a world that's fully fleshed out is good. You know, you never have to worry about like things like I do, but also like keeping things mysterious and fun and being able to like make connections later on without having to worry about like bumping into what you could consider as like a concrete idea, you know? So there's like benefits to each one. Let's see here. So the second portion of that, following that, what aspect of writing are you constantly trying to get better at, and how are you implementing it in your story currently? I'm trying to figure out how to like get my prose a little bit better. I think I struggle with it quite a bit, and it's mostly because I'm just like, I'm actively worried about like you know, small things. Like say for example, like I'm actively worried about like how many commas a sentence can have, or how many like you know, like am I getting the point across correctly? is this too wordy? You know, I want it to flow well, but like not spend too much time on hugging an idea that needs to be like, you know, to keep the pacing going. So I think that's like, you know, there's some struggles there. Definitely, I think that the biggest struggle though is like descriptions, and funnily enough, architecturally speaking, the descriptions are a real pain in the ass. You discovered the that button. It's funny. So let's see here. Let's see here. I'm trying to answer in order of chronologically, so bear with me, guys. So, what genre do you really want to try one day? And it's one you really don't want to ever write. I mean, I'm up for anything. I can try like so many different types of genres. I've always wanted to try to do a lit RPG for sure. I think that that's going to be a lot of fun. Although it's going to take like a lot of world building and you know, setup in order to figure out like how the game system's going to work. So it's going to probably be a lot of like a pain in the ass, I think, to set that one up. You know, that, and there's also the weird thing with the statistics and whatnot, and it depends on like how the story goes. But yeah, like I would love to try to do a lit RPG someday. I would also like to do another attempt at like a fantasy epic. I think that'd be kind of fun. Something that's more on the medieval side of things, but I'm kind of like falling in love with the world that I'm coming up with, so like I don't know how long I'm gonna be stuck with this one. In terms of genres that I really don't want to do, I would say probably horror. I just like, you know, I'm too much of like a comedian at heart, right? Like I like stories that are fun, that show kind of like the beauty of life, both, you know, fun and hilarious, and also ugly, scary, and like, you know, real, like brutally real. I like showing that dichotomy, and like, you know, just sticking to one, which is like horror, and then just going all in on that, and just trying to scare the reader. Like I couldn't, like it would take so much effort for me to like think about how to do that, because I'm so used to like making people laugh or think, and it's just like it would suck, you know. Like I would be completely out of my element, especially if it was like a first person writer like story too. Like that would fucking be the worst. That would be the absolute worst. So let's see here. Are there authors whose masteries in specific writing skills make you envious of them? And if so, what is it? Let's think of the authors. I definitely love Stephen King's work ethic. That's pretty baller. I also, for Brandon Sanderson too, that guy is a machine as well. I would love to have that type of you know, speed, and also like idea making, where you can just kind of like get things out really fast and just do it so professionally, like you got it boiled down in your head and you know what to do. That type of confidence would be so fucking awesome, but I haven't quite mastered that yet. I definitely am jealous of Patrick Rothfuss's ability to create a world that's super realistic. Going into like his world building, the way he does his characters, the poetic and lyrical style of his like prose, it is just so good, and it just makes you, you know, kind of just like boggles your mind, because like when you look at like the descriptions of like, say, you know, Patrick Rothfuss or you know, J.R.R. Tolkien, you just kind of like get freaking just damn, you know, like it kind of humbles the shit out of you, because you just sit there and you read and you're like, wow, that language blew me out of the water for sure. Like, just, it almost gives you a bit of anxiety, because you're like, shit, man, how am I even going to compare to that? The answer is you probably won't. The only thing is that you gotta like just find your own style and you know, own it and enjoy like what your you know, what your work is. Find your voice and all that. So let's see here. What's your opinion of ghostwriting? I have no opinion. Like, you know, people want to people want to write for other people. That's fine. I think it's kind of weird to I know I personally couldn't do it, because like I like the hands-on approach. Like I like, you know, being able to be 100% with my, you know, creativity all the time, if at all possible. I don't like other hands getting in the way. So like, you know, being able to kind of go around and like, you know, feel the work, you know, have your fingers on the pulse, and then just kind of like, you know, make those moves and understand like, you know, exactly what you're trying to do. To me, that's fun. And to like, to have a writer take your ideas and then like, you know, forge them for you, it feels so disconnected. Like I feel like it's hard. It would be hard for me to be excited about the work because I knew, you know, I don't have a personal hand in it. So like, yeah, no, I wouldn't. I would never do it on my own. Like, it just couldn't. It wouldn't feel good. So let's see here. How can a writer properly balance their art with relationships? Putting aside the fact that most others offer complete value in forms of money, securities, and success. Well, businesses, dank motorcycles, etc. How can one live with a partner while needing to spend so much time alone? I would say when you're young and you're in writing, or if you're a beginner writer, I think the best thing that you need to do is like take as much time as you can, not like, you know, not in jeopardizing your relationship with the person that you care about, but take as much time that you can on your own in areas where, you know, in the times where no one's around, or in the times where people are asleep and, you know, you can just focus on your work. Take that time to be as daring and as crazy as possible when writing your rough drafts. And then what you're wanting to do is not like your focus should not be like completing the novel. It should, although that is certainly a huge goal, but instead be satisfied with what you're creating and focus on trying to develop a process, train yourself to developing a process that will work and function the way that you want it to, right? So like at one point when I'm doing rough drafting for my novel, I did it only for 2 hours a day, and I did 2,000 words a day. That's literally the same speed as like you know, Stephen King. And when, you know, he kind of talks about this topic where he says that, like, you know, once he's done with those 2,000 words, he is officially done, and that's it. Like he turns off the computer, sets it aside, and lives his life, you know, spends time with family, friends. So I think that instead of like feeling the anxiety of like you need to finish this book, you need to like, you know, do all, you know, put all this like astronomical amount of work or like, you know, this huge amount of time into it, you really don't need to. What you do need to do is set goals for yourself. Make sure that you have like a small amount of time that you're willing to separate, you know, with your partner for a while, and then dedicate your time to that moment and do as much work as you can in that moment. And when it's done, you set it aside and rejoin life. There's nothing wrong with like having like relationships and family and like, you know, friends and all that time to spend, you know, in life. Because I think that if you're planning to entertain people and you want to relate to them, you got to learn how to be like them and be with them and like understand what makes them happy, what makes them laugh, what makes them sad. And that's a huge part of the writing process, being human. So you definitely don't want to sacrifice a bunch of time toward the writing at the detriment of your own life and, you know, balance. So find what works for you, I think, is essentially my advice there. It doesn't require that much time. You can certainly find whatever you need to work, whatever will like you would find like successful for yourself. Like it could be, I'd say like a minimum would be like 300 words per day, which is not a huge ask, right? Because like if you know, think about it, again, going to the calculator thing, let's say for example you set aside like 250 is about a page, right? So you'd be writing like, you know, a page and some change. So like 300 words per day divided by, let's say 60, because you're gonna do like only an hour of writing. that would literally mean that you'd have to come up with 5 words every minute. 5 words every minute. That's it. So that's not a huge ask. You know, you can write a page in an hour and then just set it aside and just like, you know, move onward. Now, what would that mean for you? So like, if we were to do, hold on a second. It takes like 50,000 words to write a book. And you're doing it at 300 words a day. It's gonna take you 166 days to write a novel, right? That's less than a year. You can have a novel done in less than a year if you just 300 at a time. Doesn't require that much. Kind of like exercise, doing a bit every day. It's better than 2 hours. Yeah. Anything's better than nothing, you know? It's very doable. So you don't have to like sacrifice a buttload of time in order to like, it's all become a novelist, or, you know, it's possible. All right, guys, it is time to put a rest to stream. So for those of you who are new here, again, my name is NovelistCrim. This was Writing Company and Motivation, an accountability stream, which we host on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. I'm really glad that you guys came out tonight. I'm glad for the new faces that we have here and some of the people who left a follow. If you haven't, I would recommend you leave a follow. It's a great way to get notified when we do this type of stuff. And you can also check out our Discord by hitting !Discord in chat and join our community there. We have a little text channel where you can get the journal entries that we use to discuss some of the writing topics that we have during stream. You can also leave a question there as well. We have like a list of questions before each stream that you can certainly pose, and you know, can give an answer, think about it a little bit. Other than that, guys, I really appreciate the love and support. It's been really fun doing this type of stuff, so thank you so much. Take it easy, and as always, stay passionate. See you again.